So, can we trust this pump for Kaspa and overall market? Well, this is something that we'll try to figure out in this video. Guys, if you are new, consider subscribing to the channel, and of course remember that this video is not financial advice. My name is Luke, and let's get the party started. So now guys, first of all, referring to my last update a couple of days ago, well, I was so wrong regarding this target, right? But what I'm trying to figure out in here in this video is whether Kaspa is yet going to actually retest this level of 6.5. Remember that people usually telling you that they know what's going to happen, they most likely lie, right? Well, first of all, why do I think that Kaspa might actually go to this level of 6.5, right? Well, first of all, if that would happen, that would be, well, another devastating drop of 20%, right? So let's actually have a look into Bitcoin's chart now, because I believe that this is where we are going to find our answer, right? I'm pretty sure that you are aware of the fact that many people are following the price of Bitcoin, which is obviously correlated with global money supply, right? That's a weekly chart, guys. I have already put the offset 10, right? 10 weeks, because apparently this is the most, let's say, accurate offset, right? So let me actually change the price of BTC into the wave, and let me minimize line for this liquidity, right? So as you can clearly see now on a weekly time frame, guys, this potentially is what we are experiencing at the moment. Let me actually zoom this out a little bit, right? And we are basically going into that mini rally which we are experiencing at the moment, right? And we could have a fail over here and another drop for BTC, right, as the global liquidity indicates, right? Of course, we have to remember that there is around 83% of that correlation between these. Nonetheless, so far it has been quite accurate, right? So the question is, where is this going to put the price of BTC, right? Well, people are calling, let's say, for 72, 76 or whatever K, right? Because the lowest point was 80,000. And here, let me actually go back to the candles, right? And we can see that was actually 77, right? So could we again, let's say, retest this level of 74? Well, that is possible. Nonetheless, according to global liquidity cycle, line, right? We could see the last little drop, which I believe is going to result in a little bit of a pullback for altcoins, and Kaspa to give this last opportunity to drop this liquidity and then move forward, as we are actually experiencing some bullish news, right? You can notice that global liquidity actually increased to the previous all-time highs for global liquidity, and well, I guess that this is going to result in Bitcoin's pump and altcoins as well, right? But again, I do believe that we could see a little bit of a shakiness short term, because obviously we've got some positive news, right? So this is how the market actually is looking like for today. Well, good day to be in crypto, especially considering the fact that you've been accumulating at these lows, right, where everyone was scared. Anyways, guys, let's move to a little bit of a news. So I have shown to you why I believe why Kaspa could potentially drop to that level of 6.5, and later, of course, we are going to look at liquidity, right? But now let's actually mix it with some news, right? So stay with me, because we've got some positivity, right? Now, big money is moving into Kaspa marketing. Have you noticed BCC Games, Alert, BCC News, and other major crypto accounts are now posting regularly about Kaspa? Someone is clearly spending money to put Kaspa in front of a bigger audience, right? And the question is why, right? And also I have found this, right? So the platform CoinMarketCap, owned by Binance, just added the Buy Kaspa button on the Kaspa page. This button is usually added to coins spot listed on Binance, and many big X accounts were noticed posting about Kaspa lately, right? So guys, again, of course, I don't know if it's true, right? But it looks like it is, right? So potentially another kind of hints towards Kaspa being listed on Binance. And also, guys, I have found this photo for you, right? That's a photo. I believe that these guys are Kaspa ambassadors, and they basically, well, Kaspa made its presence felt at the Web3 Global Media Conference in Amsterdam on March 13-14. So yes, the price obviously is going the way it does. Nonetheless, guys, we see that developments are pretty much happening for Kaspa, which I believe are pushed through Kaspa Ecosystem Foundation, aka KEF. and these people obviously are working in the background for Kaspa. Now obviously you guys probably have seen in a bullish news, right, of what happened in the recent FOMC meeting, right? Thomas Krallo, big shout out, he put a lot of highlights, right, of what happened before, right? So the Fed made a technical decision to slow the pace of balance sheet contraction from April 1st, and inflation is elevated, the economy is strong, the situation in labor market is stable, short-term inflation expectations have risen slightly due to tariffs, no rush to cut rates. If the labor markets weakens, we can ease monetary policy conditions, right? Guys, I don't want to bore you with all of the data because I know that your attention span is quite poor. Nonetheless, his opinion based on all of these details above, of course, that the most bullish FOMC meeting is the last year or more, especially point number one, quantitative tightening is coming to end, and it's clear signal that the Fed is slowly pivoting, hence the pump in crypto, right? So what does it mean? Well, global liquidity is going to increase most likely, right? Of course, guys, it doesn't mean that from now on you're going to see only up, because it could be a little local bull trap, as I explained with BTC's chart, but I believe that next couple of weeks, months are going to be bullish for crypto, right? And speaking about bullishness, well, we do have last 4 days of positivity if it comes to ETFs. That's a big deal. That's for BTC, by the way. And Ethereum, unfortunately, is still suffering, right? But I believe that this shift is going to happen when quantitative easing actually is going to occur, right? So now looking at Kaspa's dashboard, we are sitting at a little bit above $2 billion. Volume is sitting at 89 mil, and Kaspa did 3.9% ever since yesterday, right? We are sitting at 90.2% of Kaspa being mined. That's obviously bullish long term. And now, ladies and gents, if you want to secure your Kaspa outside of exchanges, make sure that you check out Tangent Wallet, because Tangent Wallet is definitely much better way to store your crypto, and also you can actually swap it for USDT inside of the app and you don't have to send it back to exchange, right? And with my discount code you can get minus 20% off, no sorry, minus 10% off, and of course you can pick new fancy colors, and you can see the link below this video. Now guys, coming back to liquidity, which obviously is a very important thing, right? And based on that we are going to drive our conclusions. Well, my conclusions, not financial advice, of course, and we are going to kind of, you know, look at that perspective from the standpoint of what I have shown to you with BTC's chart. I hope that makes sense. So now let's go, right? Many people are actually longing BTC. We can see, right, red color in here. I know it's hell of a confusing thing, right? Well, probably for a reason, but whatever. And now guys, all of the exchanges on 7 daily, let's notice how many people are actually longing BTC at the moment, right? So that looks quite scary if you've been longing BTC very recently, right? Because the liquidity is going to lay below, right? And this is BTC's Binance chart. This is 24 hourly, right? So again, guys, we have this kind of correlation with M2 line that you have seen before, and now you have another area of confluence, which is huge liquidity block that is sitting at 84,000, and the one below is at 83, right? So we definitely could go towards there. This is definitely possible. Let's actually have a look at the weekly perspective for the liquidity for BTC, and we see that we've got the last block at 80, right? Guys, again, I am not saying that this is going to happen, because these are two major levels of liquidity, sorry, of confluence. Nonetheless, it's kind of a clear, right, that this might gonna happen before the next run towards the upside. And now where does it put our beloved Kaspa? Well, the daily time frame on Binance at least is showing us that longs versus shorts ratio is quite even, give it or take. However, on a daily, we see that very recently people have jumped into longs for our beloved Kaspa, right? So let's actually cover daily for Kaspa first, right? So what can potentially happen is that Kaspa can gear towards the downside and grab these levels in here, right? 0.07, and then we've got 0.07 blah blah blah, right, lower levels. And I don't really think, at least based on that liquidity on a daily, is that Kaspa is going to go towards this level 6.5, right? However, if we are going to, let's say, zoom it out, we can see that these liquidity levels are definitely much more visible, right? We've got 0.07, then we've got 0.07, all of the levels of 0.07, and then we are starting 0.06, so on and so forth, and we potentially could grab this liquidity in here again before the next run towards the upside, because why not, right? Yes, of course, we do have liquidity above the current trading price, right? But now coming back to Kaspa's chart, let me actually get out of this indicator in here and let's go to Kaspa's chart. We can see that this level, this well, local run towards the upside was kind of exhausted, right? And why? Well, let me actually delete these and let me draw a trend line that is basically a downtrend on a daily time frame for Kaspa, right? And let's actually have a look. No, probably we'll have to draw another one from here and cut it, let's say, well, this way, right? So we could technically argue that Kaspa did broke the downtrend, right? But I don't trust this breakout yet, right? I would like to see something much stronger. What is definitely going to help us is going to be stochastic RSI. So click on stochastic RSI, we see that this is another area of confluence in here, showing us that we are already in overheated levels for Kaspa, right? Not mentioning, of course, about this level of resistance sitting at 8 cents, right? So yes, we do have a liquidity sitting above in here, right? But what I think is going to happen is that, well, if we are going to scare the market, well, market makers, if they are going to, you know, push the market towards the downside, more people are going to be shorting Kaspa, right? And then they are going to put their stop losses most likely in here, which means that this liquidity is going to be added, right? Which is going to make much more sense from the standpoint of market makers, in my opinion, right, to push the price towards here, right? Because there is going to be much more liquidity in here, and it's going to be much more juicier gain, in my personal humble opinion. But of course, that is going to be determined in a couple of days. We of course are going to reevaluate this chart. Guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and as always, peace and love, crypto.